What's happening, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back to Junk Drummer TV. And man, I did not want to make this video, but this documentary forced my hand. I am a child of the 90s, and I have talked about that ad nauseum on this channel. And I actually had a chance to go to Woodstock 99. At that time, I was playing in a jam band, and me and 3 other band members all lived in a house. It was like, man, we made, oh God, that place made Animal House look like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But my saxophone player in the jam band that I was in at the time wanted to go to Woodstock 99. Well, I remember Woodstock 94. I didn't go, of course, but I remember the reports and reading all the articles on Rolling Stone, in Rolling Stone magazine. And I was like, I'm not going to this damn thing. And my bass player, who was also a purveyor of the slack, as I was at the time, said, no way. Once we found out that it was on pay-per-view, we were just going to watch it from the comforts of our home. So I actually have some stories firsthand from one of my best friends at the time. Andy, if you're watching this, if you came across my channel, man, what's happening, brother? I miss you. So me and my bass player, we both worked, I think we worked at Applebee's. I was still in college at the time. And we took off all 3 days from our jobs, and we bought the 3-day pay-per-view and sat at home and watched it. And I was interested in Woodstock 99. So many bands that I love. Also, I never do this. All of my videos are off the cuff, but I did make some notes. So if you see me look down, that's what I'm doing. At that time, man, there were so many bands, and that's one of the things that sucked about this documentary. Well, no, the documentary didn't suck. Let me put that another way. How shitty it was to relive that incident. And there was really no way to spin Woodstock 99 into a positive. But there was good music there. There were great sets. There were so many bands that I liked at that show. Oh, the Roots. Man, the Roots tore the roof off. I want to do this. I want to do all the positive about Woodstock 99, and then we'll get into the outlaw mud show that it devolved into. The Roots had a legendary performance at Woodstock 99. They all came out. I don't know if you can find this, man. If you can, do it. They all came out with like cowbells, and maybe there were some hand drums. This is 22 years ago, so 23 years ago, so I'm trying to remember. But they all came out and was doing like a drum jam, and then it morphed into their first song. And I'll never forget like Black Thought yelling at the sound guys, the monitor guys, to get his monitors up. Man, they were awesome. That was a great performance. Who else? Man, I loved Live. Live was great. Live was great at Woodstock 99. Jamiroquai, holy shit, this is when Jamiroquai was a really big band. I really wish they were a really big band still. I love Jamiroquai. It was one of the reasons I paid the money for the pay-per-view. Who else? Oh, it's the first time I ever saw Tragically Hip. I think a lot of them at first time that like Americans saw the Tragically Hip, or the Hip if you're Canadian. I know if you're a Canadian watcher, and I have a lot, man, Tragically Hip's just not very big down here. You have to be a real music wonk or know someone who's Canadian or have some Canadian roots to even kind of know the Tragically Hip. But man, they were great. These were all bands that I think they happened like early on Friday. Who else? G Love and Special Sauce. They were great. I definitely remember watching that. But then, of course, a lot of the big bands, man, Metallica played, Megadeth played, Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine. Now, there is a band that they left a gigantic hole in the storyline, because a lot of bands didn't want to be associated with this documentary because they probably didn't want to, reopen those wounds. But, hey, they were screaming, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, when they're burning the shit down. More on that later. Of course, Korn. Huge Korn fan. I love them. I love them still. They came to my home place not long ago and fucking killed it. Still amazing. Who else, man? Oh, shit. Who else do I got here? Oh, who was on the emerging artist stage? Like, if you go and look at the list, the emerging artists, and I want to romanticize and say that I saw the Muse set, but I probably didn't. I'm not sure if the emerging artists made it to the pay-per-view. But Muse played at Woodstock 99. Think about that. If you go look at that list, not a lot of those artists emerged, but of course Muse emerged in the biggest way of everyone that was on that list. Moby was another one. That was on the emerging artists. So it was, of course, the two biggest. So there was good music. So if if you look back at Woodstock 99 to try to put any kind of positive spin on it, man, I know that they were worried about the Korn show getting out of hand, and I'm sure it did. But man, watching it from the comforts of your home, Korn destroyed it, man. There's very few performers of the last 20 years that are as enthralling as Jonathan Davis. That man is electric, and you can't take your eyes off of him when he's on stage. Korn killed it. It was great, man. Tell you what, Woodstock 99 was super awesome if you were at the house with your feet up on the coffee table and maybe some beverages and some other things and some good friends. It was a fantastic time. But for those that went to it, obviously it was a little bit of a different story, so let's get into that. The 90s were a hangover from the 80s, from the excess of the 80s and everything that the 80s represented. The 90s were a real big hangover from that. And we as a generation, we dealt with that through having our own keys to the house when you're like 12, a lot of nihilism and a strong chin to many various results and losses and wins by dealing with things that way. And the Woodstock 99 killed that. Like the way that Altamont killed, man, we're going to talk about some hippies. Man, if you're one of them old school hippies, I'm probably going to piss you off in this video. But the way that the Altamont Motor Speedway gig ended the 60s and then like the Manson murderers, Woodstock 99 definitely destroyed what I can at least remember as being a time that we thought things were getting better and we were going to do better than the boomers, because we were bitching about the boomers in the 90s, right? And Woodstock 99 came along to remind us that you're just like every other shit generation and you're going to fuck this up too, except we're going to put together the king hell glaring example of why the 90s positive mental attitude was probably maybe bullshit. Woodstock 99, and you really get this from the documentary. The documentary's fantastically made. There's some things that happen at the end of the movie I'm not a big fan of, some of the commentary, but we'll get into that too. It's a wonderful documentary, and man, what it shows, and I want to first preface this with this. I am a free market capitalist. I am no socialist. But this is what happens when crony capitalism goes run amok. Told you we were going to get into a little politics. This is a story of the perfect storm of corporate greed. And corporate greed that I think is even more insidious than just like run-of-the-mill corporate greed, because this corporate greed had a idealistic hippie as the mouthpiece. And I'm talking about Michael Lang. And I know he's dead, and that's tragic. But man, he's going to get buried in this video. John Shear was the big money man. I know he wasn't, but he come across like a hedge fund manager. And Woodstock 99, it's just a cash grab. And I understand, man, make your money, dude. Make your money. I'm all for it. I think everybody should be millionaires. I want everyone to be rich. But this is when ambition and wanting to make an ideological statement goes fucking sideways. When you look back at it on the documentary, you can't even believe that some of these decisions were made. You had 400,000 kids, I think that's right. 400,000 teenagers, young adults, and there's definitely some old heads in there too, right? Because like Mo still played, Mickey Hart was there, Dave Matthews Band played, so there was an element of where the festival scene started. The festival scene, this one's something that you have to completely recognize. Coachella and what's that big one in Tennessee, Bonnaroo, and all those are all birthed by the hippie movement, because they started the festival scene. And to their credit, because I love festivals, I love playing them. I like going to a lot of them. I can't go to Bonnaroo or Coachella or anything that big. It's too much. It's too fucking much. I want to not chill, because that's not right, but there's a level of festival that once it gets that big, I'm just not interested. But, you know, when you do a festival like this and you invite every big band, this is back when MTV still ruled what was cool on the airwaves and on the radio, you're going to bring a lot of people, and good on you. But hey, man, why don't you make sure that you have the facilities to house these people in relative comfort? Because I'm sure, I would like to know how much Woodstock 99 tickets were adjusted for inflation. But it's crony capitalism run amok, because if you watch the video, the documentary, all of the infrastructure was contracted out to people who were not beholden to Woodstock 99, to the Woodstock 99 promoters and the whole scene. They were there just to get paid. And look, man, I think everyone should get paid, but they took advantage. And this is something that you could do a sociological study on Woodstock 99. Like, this is what happens when you're too fucking greedy. And I gotta get this right. I'm not saying that this justified a lot of the heinous shit that went on, but it fanned the flames of anger and violence with all the price gouging, man. You're not allowed to let water come in to the festival, and I've always had a problem with this. Like, there's like a law that if you go into any restaurant and you ask for water, they legally cannot turn you down. It's basic, man. You should let festival goers bring fucking water in, and I'm sure you can't do that now on the bigger festivals, right? I'm sure that's not a thing. You're not allowed them to bring any resources, and then you are the only one. There's a limited amount of vendors there, and they can just charge whatever the fuck they want to, and you got to eat. And you gotta drink, right? So I understand that side of it. This is one of those rare instances where, like, everybody was wrong. Like, the promoters did everything wrong, and when the crowd had the chance to make the right or wrong decision, mob mentality stepped in and made sure every time that the devil on the shoulder was listened to with a gigantic PA. So I'm not trying to let the rioters, because let's be honest, shit turned into a riot. I don't want to let them off the hook. There was a thing about the documentary that I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm going to just go through it, and I want the comment section to talk about it, because I'm not sure. But when they kind of blamed the bands for the fucking up that was happening out into the crowd, and we'll get into that too, I don't know if I buy it. On one hand, I do. This is almost like a therapy session now. On one hand, I do. Like, if Limp Bizkit tells 400,000 people to fucking break shit, and they're delivering it, and man, I hate Limp Bizkit, but, for a certain sector of this population, they're a fucking great band, right? And if you scream these simple mantras that are very easily repeated back, and let's be honest, obeyed, is it the performers, like, is it their fault? You could just say, hey, give me something to break, and then, like, not break shit. But then you have that perfect storm of, like, if you're, like, well-fed and hydrated, maybe you can be like, that's right, Fred Durst. Sometimes you do want to break shit. But if it's 100 degrees outside and you have to pay $8, if that's true, that lady said it was $8 for water. Could you imagine what that is just adjusted for inflation right now? And then somebody comes along and is like, hey, man, you're kind of pissed off. You're probably thirsty. You're probably hungry. Break some shit. And look, I know that's not great energy. It's not great energy, but it is energy that exists. And you can't deny it. And you can't breed it out, and you can't culturally get rid of it. It's not possible. It's innate, right? If you believe fucking science, evolution makes a lot of room for aggression. But then on the other hand, I think, while I was thinking about this, I've been, writing this video in my head for a week now, since Miss Junk Drummer put it on. Frank Zappa said, and I'm a big Frank Zappa fan, and I think he's a Frank Zappa fan, and I think that he's right a lot, said, like, music can't affect you in any way, because if it did, we'd all be in love, because there's a billion songs about love, but yet it doesn't ensure that we all fall in love. So that's something to think about. Maybe you would try not to Red Hot Chili Peppers when they're burning shit. Maybe not play the Jimi Hendrix classic Fire. So I don't know where I stand on that. I'm not sure. I think maybe it's more like mob mentality is fucking dangerous, no matter the cause of it. Every side, all the sides, when you get into a mob, it's a fucking issue. And maybe that's more what it's about. If you're going to be a promoter and you want to put on a great party, because again, if you watch this from the house, it was completely enjoyable. Until you're worried about your friend who's at the show, and Red Hot Chili Peppers just played Fire, and there's like fucking 40-foot bonfires that are definitely not regulated in any way, and who knows if there's fire departments on site. Then it gets a little shifty, because, I remember back in the 90s, like, maybe he had a pager, because I know I had a pager, because that was like my first senior year of high school or college. But like, we had no way to call Andy and be like, hey, Andy, are you dead? And that's another thing that they glossed over. I can't believe they did. 3 people died at that one. 3 people died at Woodstock 69. I'm not sure about 94. That is 400,000 people. Shit's going to go down. But like I said, every chance that the promoters had to fuck up, they jumped right in that pool. They didn't have enough security. Like, if you're going to have moshing bands, Megadeth, Metallica, Korn. Like, dude, I've been in a Korn mosh pit. It's like a Floyd Mayweather. No, it's not like a Floyd Mayweather fight. It's like an Anderson Spider Silva fight. It's violent as shit, man. It's brutal. And they had nobody. Maybe that's why they shouldn't have had those bands. But I got to say, I loved seeing them from the comfort of my home, with a cold one in my hand and going to sleep in my bed right afterwards. There's so much shit to unpack in this documentary. It's fucking maddening. I will have to say that something that I noticed, except, well, no, not really. Astro World just happened with Travis Scott. There was a bunch of people like crushed to death at that one. But other than that, one instance, and I could be wrong, if I am, tell me, it seems like the festival scene learned from Woodstock 99 and made sure that shit didn't happen anymore, because, man, that shit's going to be dangerous. And I can say that, like, as a musician, you would never, ever, to quote Chris Jericho, want to play a gig where multiple people died, and we're like, how do I bring this up? The R word, the bad thing, the baddest thing that you can do to another human. Apparently, the R word was fucking rampant. And that goes to, man, I hate to say it. Man, maybe I do. You reap what you sow, as they say down in the South. If you bring a certain kind of fan and put them in a pressure cooker with 399,999 people, man, you're going to get bad shit. You're going to get bad shit. But this is where I really have a problem with the documentary. They kind of like played it that like the R word and the S harassment. I'm trying to trying to matrix dodge bullets on the algorithm here and not get this demonetized. But like they tried to make it sound that like that was just how it was, and that really pissed me off. I had watched 3 episodes of My Generation that I had looked back on with rose-colored glasses and, you know, saw the worst element and example of the culture that I grew up in. And they were just like, that's how it was. I'll fucking tell you right now, it's not how it was. Like, it wasn't just rampant and nobody was just cool with it. That one really pissed me off. Like, really? You think like in the 90s, we were all just like, yeah, whatever. This happened, R-word. What are you going to do? It's not fucking true. That was not fucking fair. And it was said by Ananda Lewis. Ananda Lewis, we meet again. But she was wrong about that. That was fucking silly. Our culture for a good portion of the last couple of decades have all kind of been on the same side of the fence about that, despite what you hear in the fucking legacy media. Yeah, it was an example of 60s ideology that may or may not have even been a reality and almost become like a merchandising gimmick, like the hippie peace love thing. I'm not so sure if it was real or not. I think this video probably should be called Rose-Colored Glasses. I think we look back on that as this like time where they were, you know, standing up for something. But man, was it really that, or was it just like a bunch of dudes that wanted to like smoke dope and bang hippie chicks? I think it might be somewhere in the middle, but I think it may lean to one side, if you know what I'm saying. When Michael Lang, and shame on that guy. I know you're not supposed to speak ill of the dead, but shame on that dude for coming out and downplaying the ridiculous allegations that were obviously true, because we knew they were true because MTV was there filming it all. And him and that scumbag John Shear, the money man, both downplayed the seriousness of this. Man, I bet you those guys weren't able to get sued because I'm sure there was a big old non-disclosure type agreement when you bought tickets to that thing. But when that fucking hippie grifter was talking about all of these horrible things that happen, injuries and R's and SH's, S harassments and less, you know, of course, less serious than that, the gouging of your customer, and the piece de la resistance that puts the nail, oh man, that's pretty morbid to say, that really that's bad to say too, that really makes Michael Lang look like a fucking moron, is they gave the fans, Junk Drummer TVs, they gave on the 3rd day of a hellscape of like the worst time that you could ever have with the best soundtrack during your bad time. He gave everyone fucking candles because this stupid hippie wanted to have some fantastic photo op with 400,000 people fucking holding candles. What the fuck did you think they were going to do? They burned the place down. And then me and Sean sitting at the house wondering if our fucking saxophone player's dead or not. And I'm sure that played out in families and friend groups all over the fucking country. That's how of a absolute shit show Woodstock 99 was. Holy shit. I was so pissed the whole time I watched this. You ever watch something like that? Like you're just mad. You just keep watching it so you get more mad. And then like halfway through, you're like, God damn it, now I got to do a fucking YouTube video on this fucking thing. And this has been the most unique video that I've done on my channel so far. So really like to just like sum it up. When you grow older and you look back on your generation and you look back on it with them rose-colored glasses, as John Conley would say, make sure that you're aware of the reality, and sometimes you need reminded of it. That was the best part about that documentary, is it reminded us, or reminded me of the worst elements of that time. But man, every time has worse elements, and every time has great elements. I can tell you that, like, I went to the Allgood Festival in like 99 or 2000, and it was phenomenal. It was one of the best musical experiences of my life. The first time I went to one of those kind of festivals, and then I eventually got to play an Allgood Festival. And this was a festival in somewhere, West Virginia or somewhere, and it was a wonderful experience. And it was like a few thousand people there, and Allgood, of course, got a lot bigger as it went on. So those things can happen, those events can happen, and you do have a great experience, and you have nothing but great things to think about it when you think back on it. But I think something as large as a Woodstock, if you notice, they've not tried to do it again. Man, if they tried to do like a Woodstock 50, you know we're all fucked. But it seemed like my generation was trying to, and every generation does this, I understand. It seems like our generation was trying to like light a path to a better tomorrow. Because when you're in your 20s, you have the luxury to think in those grandiose terms. But maybe that generation was handed a candle with the hopes of giving an uplifting photo to the world. Maybe we just decided to burn the world down.